1 week earlier, we see our protagonist, whom the elves from Ixaton called the Human and tried to kill, smiling brightly. Our main character's name is Rob, and he is seen chatting with his best friend, Jason, at their high school while heading to class. He casually asks Jason about the party the previous night, and Jason responds that it was monumental, and that Rob should have been there. Our protagonist makes up an excuse for his absence, and Jason told him that everyone at the party would have liked him if he attended, which immediately made our main character blush. While observing his best friend flirting with some female classmates, he reveals that he and Jason had been friends for a long time since a very young age, and that Jason always took care of him. After briefly chatting with the female students, Jason urged Rob that they should hurry to their class since he didn't want to be late. Rob nonchalantly agreed, and the both of them bantered back and forth, completely oblivious to the danger ahead. Once our protagonist finally saw what was in front of them, he quickly froze in place, unable to move or speak, trying to comprehend what he was looking at. Seeing Rob's unnatural behavior, and still not noticing the menacing presence ahead, Jason jokingly comments if Rob's weird behavior was a result of seeing their gym teacher. Rob, not amused by the humor, slowly pointed to the evil-looking abyss portal ahead of them, and urged Jason to hurry and turn around to take a look. In complete shock at the abnormal sight, Jason comments that it definitely was not their gym teacher. Now he was the one frozen in place like Rob a minute ago, while Rob was already running towards his friend to pull him away from the evil portal. They managed to create a little distance between themselves and the door to the abyss. A frightened female student was seen running beside them, also trying to escape from the terrifying object. I think this chick is gonna cause some trouble here. As if on cue, the female student trips while trying to run with her 2 left feet and falls flat on her face with a loud thud.
Damn! Damn!
Seeing the girl fall, Jason, with his heroic nature, ran back towards the girl to save her while our protagonist tried to discourage it. Our protagonist admits to himself that he's never been a hero, but merely an observer. He confirms that his best friend had always been the hero. Jason was able to save the damsel in distress, but unfortunately threw himself into danger. Rob warned his best friend of the incoming threat, rapidly heading towards them from the rear, and quickly bolted ahead like a frightened rabbit, leaving Jason behind. Jason attempted to run to try to catch up with our protagonist. Sadly, his leg was suddenly caught by a sinister-looking tentacle which wrapped itself around the leg tightly. The tentacle started dragging Jason back towards the portal, while he could only call out to his best friend, unable to free himself from the tentacle's grip. Not wanting to remain just a no-action observer for the rest of his life, he decided this was the time to play hero and save his friend. As he was reaching out to grab hold of Jason's hand, a chain swiftly shot out from the portal looking for its target. He was able to successfully make contact with his friend's hand and pull Jason towards him, freeing Jason's leg from the tentacle. But at the same time, the chain from the abyss locked on to his wrist. It looked like there was no escape possible from the unbreakable chain. The chain yanked our powerless protagonist towards the abyss portal, and he flew like Superman heading towards his doom. Jason could only helplessly call out to our main character, while our protagonist could only resign himself to his possible death. After being sucked into the portal, pure terror could be seen on our protagonist's face as his entire body was being swallowed up whole by some form of dark liquid. After being completely swallowed, he began to descend to the depths of the abyss, not knowing how long it would take to reach the end of it. While he was free-falling, a voice could be heard in the background saying that Rob would be sufficient. Could this be the voice of the terrifying entity that created the portal and dragged our main character into it? After some time passed, Rob was finally released from the dark liquid and found himself on the floor of a cave. At the end of the cave, he saw the light from the outside. He told himself not to head towards the light since it might lead to unknown dangers, and probably his doom. After mustering up some courage, he decided to take a risk and head out of the cave. As soon as he was outside, he immediately began wondering where he was. It wasn't apparent right away whether he was in another world or dimension, or still in his world even though he did just come out of a portal. He walked only a short distance and glanced over the edge of the cliff, and finally confirmed that he was in another world. There were weird-looking creatures climbing trees he'd never seen before while he walked towards the edge of the cliff. There were also enormous prehistoric-looking flying beasts as well as an erupting volcano in the distance. Everything you would typically see in a fantasy novel. Knowing he was in a different world, our protagonist began to worry about whether Jason was okay. He decided to search for a way back to his own world. While heading in a random direction, he finally noticed that he wasn't wearing the clothes he previously wore before entering the portal. And after finally noticing his different outfit, he also noticed that a large sword was strapped to his back. So he decided to unsheath the sword to take a closer look. Not thinking the sword was real, he unhesitatingly touched the sharp edge of the blade and cut himself. An HP or health point screen appeared out of nowhere and notified him that he just lost 1 HP. Curious about the HP screen in front of him, he tapped on the screen and a status window you see in video games materialized out of thin air. Confused, our MC wondered if it was some kind of advanced VR technology. The status window provided a great deal of information about the main character. Levels, HP, stamina, endurance, vitality, etc. The information was similar to those you would find in popular RPG or role-playing games. He also noticed that he had a passive skill called speed reading. Not sure how useful that skill would be for his current situation. For someone who had been sucked into a portal against his will, who found himself in a strange new world with fantasy-type creatures and a VR-type status screen, our protagonist seemed to be very calm about everything. That is, until he heard a loud growl. All his calmness disappeared, and he eventually started to panic. The terrifying creature that let out the loud growl was an infected-looking wolf who seemed to be searching for some prey. It had set its eyes on Rob and was slowly heading towards him. Rob unsheathed the sword from his back and started freaking out even more because he had never wielded a weapon before. All he could do was point the weapon at the frenzied-looking wild creature and tell it to stay back. Of course, the wolf would never listen to him, seeing its dinner right in front of it. Our MC, hoping that it might give him a new skill, started swinging the sword frantically while keeping his eyes closed. He also prayed that the creature would be intimidated by his bizarre antics. Unfortunately, the wild wolf wasn't deterred by our MC's actions, and ultimately lunged towards him for the kill. At the same exact time the wolf lunged towards him, Rob held out the sword in front of him with eyes closed, hoping it would at least deal some damage to the attacking animal. He felt a heavy pressure land on his sword, and gathered some courage to take a little peek to see what happened. His sword had successfully pierced through the center of the animal's chest, leaving the creature with a large hole. It was a gruesome sight. But even after being impaled in the center of its body by the sword, the wolf did not perish immediately. It still viciously growled at our protagonist, wanting to tear out a piece of his flesh. Suddenly, a loud crunching noise was heard, and our protagonist let out an agonizing scream, with the wolf's weight and the momentum from its powerful leap carrying it forward. It was able to successfully reach its prey and bite down on his shoulder. Rob, with all his might, decisively pulled his sword upward, cleanly slicing through the wolf's upper body, instantly incapacitating it. The wolf finally released the death grip it had on our MC's shoulder and fell powerlessly to the ground. Exhausted from the short but fierce battle, and from the wound inflicted on his shoulder, Rob also fell to the ground with a loud thud. He was in a lot of pain, and the wound was so severe that he started rapidly losing his health points. He eventually came to the realization that this was not a virtual world but real life, since he was bleeding out and was heading towards his death. His HP was nearly half gone, reduced to 65 points out of 110 maximum.